When you were a kid, what did you want to be when you grew up? When you were a kid, what did you want to be when you grew up? Question number 2, what are you now? And then question number 3, what happened? I was listening to a podcast and I wish I'd remembered so I can give that person credit. And I'm like, I could not continue with the podcast. I paused it and I'm like, oh my goodness, I just started thinking about this question. And I go, wow, what an amazing question. What an amazing series of 3 questions. What were you when you were a kid? What did you want to be when you grow up? What are you now? And what happened in between?
Hello and welcome to the Riyadi Club podcast, where entrepreneurs are the real heroes. On this podcast, we discuss tools, concepts, and ideas that are practical and inspirational for the entrepreneur. To learn more, go to www.riyadi.me. That's RIADI.me. Thank you, and I hope you find this episode helpful.
Hello listeners, this is Ruba Al-Tijani and welcome to Riyadi Club with Daud Qaqish. The title of today's session is Sustain Belief. Now this is part 6 of 7 parts of Your Big Dream season. We've got Daud in the line, and Daud, how are you? And let me ask you straight away, why is this important for the person listening to us?
Well, hello, Ruba, and hello, listeners. And as Ruba said, the title of today's session is Sustain Belief. And this is part 6 of 7 of Your Big Dream. Here's the big problem that I see is that we all have our big dreams. We all have our ambitions. And we start thinking about these dreams. And sometimes we talk about them, we start them, we write them down. But the really big question is, do we continue down that path? And I'm going to give you a classic example that happens to a lot of us every year. And I'm one of those guys. At the beginning of every year, in December, a new year is coming up. You want to put your New Year resolutions and you're like, I'm going to eat healthy, I'm going to exercise, and I'm going to lose weight. And 2 weeks into it, and everybody's forgotten about that, right? So the big goal or the big dream for that year, or the ambition or whatever you want to call that, was to lose weight or to eat healthy or to exercise. And how many people really stick with that? And by the way, as a side topic, all these like gym memberships and healthy, all the ads and advertisements, they go really heavy in December and January of every year, because that's when they know that most people are looking for that, like the diet plans and this and that. But exactly. Yeah. So what happens is eating healthy and weight loss or exercising or whatever it is, January 1, you're committed to it. January 15th, you already forgot about that, right? Life is the same way with our big dreams. We started with something, with that big dream, with that big ambition. And some way along the path, we ended up drifting. And it's kind of like the analogy that I think about. It's kind of like a piece of wood drifting in the ocean, right? You're a piece of wood, you're drifting in the ocean, and you're going wherever the waves take you. You're going wherever life takes you. And here's a line that really stuck with me. And I think this was Robin Sharma who shared this line. I'm not 100% sure, and I really loved it because this has to do with your big dream. Potential unexpressed turns into pain. Potential unexpressed turns into pain. And when I think about that, this is the pain of unrealized dreams, the pain of unrealized ambitions. And what's really painful is when you didn't even give it a try. When you gave that big dream or that big ambition a try and you failed, it's not that painful because you know that you gave it your best and maybe you'll try again. But I imagine, and Ruba, I'm sure that you and me meet these people all the time. It's almost like there's this hidden pain, right? Within them, there's this pain because they had this big dream, this big ambition, and it's dead inside of them. And they're just, it's like they're carrying all this pain with them. And one of the lines that really stuck with me, and I live by this line, was when I was a kid, when I was a little boy, my mom used to tell me, do your best and let God do the rest. And it's funny, anytime I come across something and I'm like, man, this is too big of a project, or this is overwhelming, or this or that, I come back to, you know what? All I can do is give it my best. Here's a line from my mom that sticks with me for the rest of my life, which is, do your best and let God do the rest, right? And it really is very motivating because all I can do is my best, and hey, if that's not enough, that's not enough, and that's okay. But again, the topic of what we're talking about is how do you sustain belief? How do you stay on course so you're not like that piece of wood that's drifting in the ocean? And how do you follow and you sustain belief and you stay with it? How do you stay with your big dream, with your big ambitions? At the end of this session, I'm going to share 2 tools with you today. I have 2 calls of action for you as a listener that'll really help you out. And I guess, Ruba, that's kind of what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about sustaining belief. Sounds good?
Yeah, first of all, I'm the biggest fan of your mom just because of that. Just because of what she's given you. I mean, that's a piece of gold that she's giving you for all your life. And you just gave it to us and we're holding to it now. And I'm going to pass it to my kids. And it's really true. Do your best. Let's go do the rest. It's just amazing. So yeah, thank you to your mom.
I haven't heard anybody else say that. I don't know where she got it from. I think she made it up, but that's great. It's something that stuck with me and I really live by that. So there's a couple of things we're going to do. We're going to ask the listener a series of questions, and then I'm going to share a thinking tool with you that'll really, really change your perspective on how you can stick to it and go after that big dream and go after that big ambition, regardless of how big it is. But the first part of what we're going to do today is we're going to ask you a series of questions. And if you want, feel free to turn off this session and kind of answer those questions. I heard this during a podcast in my car. These 3 questions got me really, really, really thinking. I'm going to ask you as a listener. So question number 1 is, when you were a kid, what did you want to be when you grew up? When you were a kid, what did you want to be when you grew up? Question number 2, what are you now? And then question number 3, what happened? I was listening to a podcast and I wish I'd remembered so I can give that person credit. And I'm like, I could not continue with the podcast. I paused it and I'm like, oh my goodness, I just started thinking about this question. And I go, wow, what an amazing question. What an amazing series of 3 questions. What were you when you were a kid? What did you want to be when you grow up? What are you now? And what happened in between?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Ruba, I can see you're even thinking about that, right? Like, oh my goodness.
That's depressive. That's depressive. How many people are aligned, their answers are aligned in these 3 questions? Is there anyone who could maybe have the same answer, for example, I wanted to be an astronaut and I'm not obviously today an astronaut, but then the last question is a crusher. The last question is crazy. The last one is what happened? Yeah, David, these questions are really heavy.
Yeah. And here's the deal. I still sometimes, this is crazy because, when I'm driving, I usually like to listen to a podcast or listen to music. On my iPhone, I have a folder that says, ideas or insights when I'm driving or when I'm running. And to be fair, when I'm running, I stop and write these insights down. And when I'm driving, I pull over and I write them down. And sometimes I get upset because the insight's really good. I'm on a place where I can't stop. So I'm looking for a place to kind of stop or exit or, to stop safely so I can put that down. But I remember, I'm like, when I heard these 3 questions, and I'm not here to answer them for, the listener. It's for the listener to listen and answer them on their own. For that week, for half of the week, I would just drive in silence and I would just be thinking about these questions. That's how much these questions were impactful. So here's the deal. And I want to make sure I give credit. This whole concept of your big dream, the whole framework is really a book by Bob Goff called Dream Big. And he writes about the whole thing. And what we're doing is we just took this framework and we're talking about it in these sessions and we're calling it your big dream. So that's what we're doing. Now, there's more questions that I want to ask you that are related to sustaining belief as it relates to your big dream. So one of the questions that you want to think about is, how are you wired? You want to know, how do you describe how you've sustained belief in the past? What kept you going? So, what's something, and again, this is, we may or may not answer it, but it's for you to think about this as a listener, and feel free to pause the session and think about these things and answer that. But, in the past, when you had a big dream, when you had a big goal, and let's, go back in time, and let's say you accomplished something. It could be buying a car, it could be starting a new job. I mean, it could really be anything, a side project. What is it that you did that you sustained belief that what are the things that you did that kept you going? That's what you want to think about, because you want to take those same things and you want to apply that to your big dream, to your big ambition that's coming up. Maybe a different way to think about this too is retrace your steps. Go back and look when times were tough, okay, when things weren't going as you thought. How did you overcome these challenges? Where did you find your confidence? Where did you find your motivation? Where did you find your joy? Like, what kept you going, right? So it's almost like, I know we're looking to the future and we have our big goals and our big dreams and big ambitions that we want to accomplish. But sometimes it's good to stop and look in the past and say, okay, historically, how have I done that? What can I learn from that? And how can I apply that moving forward? Anyways, so these are some of the questions that I wanted to ask. I've got some more things, but Roba, I think this is a good time for me to pause and go over to you.
Yeah, absolutely. I really love that. And the reason I love it is because I realize that there is a pattern. Like, for example, in my life, there is a pattern in the way that I handle stuff, that I handle failures, that I handle success. The question for me would be like, okay, so what keeps you going? Is it your network? Is it your trust of circle of trust, the people around you? When you're feeling really challenged, do you look for this like outside? Do you have any practice? Do you maybe meditate? Try to find it inside? Do you look for it? How do you do it? And I find that this is very insightful, because for me, I really have a pattern. Whenever something happens and I find myself like in the same situation, maybe very far from something I wanted, or sometimes even feeling that it's impossible, that it's not going to happen, or I'm about to quit, I always have a pattern. I always have like ways to do it. Sometimes I would just write the ideas, the negative ideas that I have, and I would talk to myself. I would say, this is not me, these are not my ideas, and I will go through them with myself and just really try to understand like why these are not my ideas, and why actually I should hold to a positive perspective. Because sometimes, everyone has a different perspective, right, David? And sometimes you have a good perspective, and from your perspective, it's doable, and you have your vision, and you know that you can do it. But the pieces are not just there yet, but you're getting there. But sometimes you get drifted in other people's perspectives. And I think this can also be like it could be really disappointing sometimes, because especially if it's a new project or a new idea, or something that you have a specific vision of, perhaps no one else is sharing it with you. So yeah, at some point, I feel like I always go to certain people when I'm at that point. I really try to also get back to my core, get back to myself, why I wanted to do that, go back to the initial plan, because sometimes the initial plan is very, very different from what is actually happening. So it really helps to go back to the initial plan and really just compare it to what is happening and figure out like, yeah, you're still going on the right direction. Holding a pen and a paper, I think, is a perfect technique. It's a classic. It never gets old. It always helps a lot to have a pen and a paper in your hands and just go through it, write the ideas, draw it, use diagrams. I use diagrams a lot. And I just absolutely love these questions because it's a great way to self-reflect. So you will always, I think for me, I always realize that, yes, there is a pattern. There is a pattern in the way that I handle stuff and how I get through these things. What about you?
Yeah, that's a great question. As you were talking, I was thinking about that in terms of a pattern. Yeah, I'll share that with you and with the listener. And again, this is my pattern, but as a listener, yours might be different. But the key is to go back and reflect and say, hey, what have I historically done, or what have I done in the past? And how can I be smart about that in the future and use it to my advantage and maybe be proactive about that? So my pattern is this. I usually will research, let's just say it's a project or, something I want to do. I'll research it. I'll research it quite a bit, a good amount. And then I'm like, great, that's it. I'm going to do it. And then I put my head down and I just go for it, right? I'll go for that big thing. And to me, everything between my goal or that project and everything in between is just a stoplight. It's like, how fast can I get from point A to point B once I make that decision? But there's two things that I discovered that if I don't do them, that I will get burnt out really fast. One is if I don't spend alone time thinking about the project, right? So it's important for me to collaborate because most of my projects involve other people. But if I don't take time to withdraw and be on my own, I find that it's really hard for me to sustain belief and keep my high energy level. So that's sort of like on a weekly basis. It's almost like every week, if I'm working on something, I need to take time alone to reflect and think that through, usually strategically. And it doesn't take a lot of time, maybe just 30 minutes or something like that. But if I don't do that, I get burnt out really easily. And then the other thing is sometimes like I work so hard and I spend so much time and energy and effort that I could potentially burn myself out. So it's almost like every 3 months, I need to take a couple of days off and just unplug completely. And if I don't do that, I'm burning myself. So what I discovered in the past is I quickly learned that I need to spend some time alone when I'm working on something. So that I adjusted, but that every 2 or 3 months to just sort of completely unplug and come back, I would get so burnt out. I'm like, you know what? Screw it. I'm done. I'm done with this whole thing. I don't want to do it anymore. And I would say I'm done. And then I would just, because I'm burnt out, I would take some time off and, just a couple of days. And then I would come back and I go, what's wrong with me? That was amazing. We accomplished so much. Why am I done with this thing? And then I go back and I say, no, let me do that. So what I have learned is take what I call proactive recovery. And what I mean by proactive recovery, can you take time on a daily, weekly basis where you're able to recover because you're working so intense and you're working so hard? And it's not sitting there and watching TV. I have nothing against watching TV, but that's not proactive recovery. Proactive recovery might be something very specific that you do on a weekly or on a daily basis. It could be a walk. It could be a run. So for me, running is a great way for me to, I know it sounds crazy, but it's a great way for me to recover because I'm running alone and it's my thoughts and music and a podcast or, whatever I'm thinking about. And then about once every 3 months, I really just need to get away for a couple of days, right? To change perspective. So I'm in a different surroundings and things like that. Now, one of the things that Bob Goff talks about in this book is find your safe place, right? What is your safe place, right? Because, life can be stressful. Where's your safe place, right? I don't call it a safe place. I call it, because when you think of a place, you're thinking of a location, a coffee shop, or, a specific place that you go to. But where's your proactive recovery? How do you proactively recover? I would say on a daily basis, on a weekly basis, and then every 3 months, every 90 days. Do you have a system to proactively recover every day, right? Because if you're really intense, for me, again, it's just going for a walk or going for a run. And for me, every week, right, I go on a longer run, right? Other people, it might be swimming, it might be, whatever, watching a movie. For everybody, it's a little bit different. And then once every 90 days, it's almost like you need to really totally unplug and then, plug back in. And for me, it's traveling. And I don't care where I go. I just need to go, someplace different. And that's it. So I guess the question for you as a listener is, what is your method for proactive recovery? How do you proactively recover on a daily, weekly, on a monthly basis?
It seems so natural that you're surprised at how could it took humanity such a long time to come up with this. Like, it seems so natural.
Proactive recovery. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love that he's calling it a safe place. You're calling it a routine or a ritual or a proactive recovery. And for me, and I shared that with you before, for me it's a ritual actually, and that's why I do meditation, because I feel like this is what I do to disconnect. And I'll share with you something. When I used to work in we were in Prague, and people in Prague are drinking a lot of beer, so it is one of the customs that people used to do, and I wasn't doing that. I wasn't doing anything to kind of like break and just stop my working day and then just break off and go home and live my life. And I just felt like, because everyone would just finish work and then they would go to the pub and they will drink and then they will get ready to go home. So because I wasn't doing that, I felt like I was just burning out because my day would just continue. I had no way to like unplug. So now I'm absolutely happy that I discovered meditation, because that's a great
Yeah.
way for me to unplug and just like, yeah, get a fresh start, go to a safe place. But the place doesn't necessarily have to be a physical place, right? It can be as well a spiritual place. It can be like a place in your mind. It can be a habit. It can be like maybe meeting a group of people that you get energized with. It can be like whatever, but I just absolutely love that. Though Rob says it's a place, we understand it in absolutely different ways
Yeah.
according to whatever works for us, right? Yeah, it is a proactive recovery. Yeah, that's how you recover, right? That's how you charge yourself. And I love the word proactive, because I think watching TV just puts you in kind of like an ideal mode, right? You're just watching, and that's the same way I feel about Candy Crush.
Yeah.
I had some days that I was absolutely getting crazy
Hmm.
in Candy Crush, and it's nothing. You enter it with the same mood and you're just in the void for a long time, but you get nothing out of it. So that is totally unproactive. It doesn't charge you, it doesn't energize you, it doesn't give you any insight. It's not even a quiet time. You're actually busy doing something, but
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
still engage. Like, it's not proactive at all.
Yeah. And, I mean, social media, video games, TV, whatever. I mean, that's fine. You need to figure out, hey, what is it that really helps you to proactively recover? And when you think about like an elite athlete, right? An elite athlete exercises so much, but they make sure that they do things like, eat really well and sleep and exercise, and they have days for recovery. That's why, soccer players, they don't play back to back, right? I think they play I don't know. I think it's like a maximum of 2 games a week or something like that. But they have a whole system to, play a game, and then there's, active recovery after the game and things like that. It's the same with you. You don't want to forget about that piece, because it's actually smart to think about proactive recovery, because it's going to get you closer to your big dream and your big ambition. Now, so moving on to something else that's really, really important is surrounding yourself with the right people, and the right people that can provide love, support, and encouragement. And one of the things that I talk about a lot is you don't need 100 reasons why something won't work. You just need one reason why it is going to work, why it will work, right? Because it's easy for people to say, oh yeah, this isn't going to work and this and that, and they give you 100 reasons. I don't need 100 reasons why something won't work. I just need one reason why something will work. And I mean, I look around and I go, oh my goodness, who would have ever thought a company like Airbnb or Uber or Careem or, these houses, these apartments, these cars have been around forever, but nobody has ever thought about using them in a different way. Careem and Uber don't need 100 different ways why something won't work. They just need one reason why something will work. And when I think about that, I go, Airbnb, Kareem, it's really, the concept isn't that hard. I mean, we all know what it is, right? So the idea is surround yourself with the right people that actually are going to encourage you and help you. And I could get off on a whole tangent on that, but the idea is don't even tell people. And I've started doing that in my life. The people that are always going to give me 100 reasons why something won't work. Not that I don't want their opinion, but I don't really care about their opinion anymore, because they're not the customer. They're not involved in the dream. So why am I doing that? So, one of the philosophies that I have in business is test it on people that write you a check or give you money. Don't test it on team members. Don't test it on anybody. Test it on customers. And the way is, are they going to give you money for that or not? And if they do, great. That's their way of clapping for you. And if they don't, hey, you know what? That's not what it is. So with your big dream, with your big goal, right? Don't worry about other people that have nothing to do with that. Your big dream, your big ambition is uniquely yours. And so you don't have to worry about everybody else. Worry about the people that can help you get there and focus on that. So that's something I just wanted to say. And I guess before I talk about this thinking tool, I want to share one last concept that's really important, that sometimes we forget to do that. And what I mean by that is, be gracious to yourself. I am always amazed, and I think this applies to most of us as people. I'm always amazed at how gracious I am to other people around me and how we're gracious to others, family, friends, colleagues, whoever. But then when I'm talking to myself, I'm very harsh on myself. I'm like, man, what's wrong with you? Why did you do this? You're an idiot. What a moron, And we just kind of get like, how did you not know this, And so I started doing something where when I noticed myself talking to myself that way, I'm like, you know what? Let me shift gears. Let me talk to myself as if I'm talking to a friend. Is that how I would talk to a friend? No, I wouldn't. So why am I talking to myself that way? So be gracious to yourself. Forgive yourself. It's okay. Mistakes happen. It's okay. And just be gracious to yourself. So along the path, don't be so harsh on yourself. Be gracious to yourself and talk to yourself as if you would be talking to a good friend, right? How would you talk to him? How would you talk to her? That internal talk you have with yourself, you really want to think about it that way.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we're often guilty of being too harsh with ourselves, too rude because no one is listening, right? We think that no one is listening, and that's why you go like, why did you do it? And just the blaming and everything. But it's really affecting us. It really affects us because I feel like the self is that first partner. If you want to have a partner in this life, then actually your first partner is not your wife, it's not your husband, it's yourself. And yourself is listening to you all the time. It hears everything, it hears your idea. So it's only fair to be nice to yourself if you want others to be nice to you as well. Sometimes you would realize that because you're harsh to yourself, other people are harsh to you. The way you treat yourself, you're being treated by others. Everything outside is just a reflection of what you have inside. But I wanna thank you, David, because you gave me the advice of test whatever you wanna test with your customers, not with your team, not with your family, not with people who might be like they love you and they're interested in you, but they're not interested in what you're doing. They have no interest. If it works, it will not change their life. It's not gonna impact them. So I really tried that and it worked for me so well. I loved it. It was a totally different reaction. I would usually go and have to ask people and beg them, please try this and explain it to them. But when you find the right people, the people who are buying it from you, they are interested. They're almost like begging you to try it. They're like, wow, you came up with this. Like they appreciate you more. So I think that is the greatest advice. I just couldn't emphasize more on it. It's an absolutely great advice. I love it. And I wanted to share that with the listeners that if they are doing this mistake, if you have like a new project and you go and you try it in your family and your friends and you think that, okay, yeah, I'll start with the small circle, right? And then I will test it and I will see how it goes and I will gain self-confidence. Don't do that. Have a small circle of potential clients and test it with them. And maybe talk to them and tell them, okay, I'm testing this at the moment if they're interested to be part of your testing and so on. Yeah. And it works so much better.
I would say this sort of, I'm so tempted to test it on sometimes, family and friends or even team members, but they're not writing a check. They're not buying the thing. So why do I do that, right? It's not that I don't care about their opinion. It's like, listen, I really want to get to the person that is paying me. What does he or she think, right? If it's a product or a service. Now, on the flip side of that is, hey, who are other people out there that maybe have my same big dream or a similar big ambition or a similar goal? And can we put something together? And there, what I love to do is I love to put like a small mastermind group together where, and I've shared this, we're in the same business. 4 of us get on a call once a month together and we share because we're all growing together. We're all trying to get to the same place. And the way that you use that is, what is that big dream? What is that big ambition? There's other people that have something similar. So why don't you leverage that and just, those are the people maybe you want to talk to, not necessarily your brother or your sister, not that, because your brother and sister, they might be nice, maybe they're not, but they really know nothing about this thing and, where you're going. And so even if they're helpful, it may be irrelevant. And so it's almost like, hey, who do you surround yourself with as they help you to get there, right? And the last thing you want to do is open up to people that are going to shoot things down for you. It's one thing to say, hey, Ruba, I don't know that this is a good idea. Maybe you want to look at it that way versus you're an idiot, don't do it, right? Those are totally two different things. And stay away from the people that, hey, you're an idiot, don't do it, or this is stupid, right? Because I don't know, there's a lot of things out in the world that I think are stupid and they're working really well.
Yeah, and sometimes because the idea is new, it sounds stupid and it gets rejected because it's new and nobody does that, right? So yeah, you might hear, who would do that? Why would you do that? But I wanted to as well add, David, that the fear might always be there. Like I feel like the fear will always be there whenever I will talk about myself. Whenever I want to start something new, there is always this fear. But it's the fear that okay, I'm doing it for the first time, and I'm starting to get used to this fear and just like acknowledge it. I'm like, okay, if it's there, then it's the fear of doing it for the first time. It's not necessarily the type of fear that has to paralyze you and keep you down. No, feel it, be okay with it, and go through it because it will go away and it will change. And I feel like there is a relationship between the amount of fear and how big the decision you are having is, how impactful is it, how much is it connected to your lives and often the lives of other people as well. And if you realize that, well, I'm doing something big that is impacting a lot of other people, maybe your family and maybe families of other people involved, then of course there's gonna be fear, but that's okay. You can still go through it and you can still think of ways to minimize the risk, to maybe not to impact these people so much, because sometimes it is so much easier if you have nothing to lose than if you have more on the stake.
Yeah, I mean, it's not, I think people sometimes confuse fear and courage. And it's not the absence of fear, because, we're all afraid, but it's the courage to keep on going in spite of the fear. And it's almost like that courage is a muscle, right? The more you use it, the more you become okay with it. You become okay with it. And we're not talking about, doing something crazy, but we're talking about it's normal to have fear. And it's just the courage to keep on going. And frankly, if there is no fear, there probably is no excitement. And fear is kind of like it's a coin. On one side, there's fear. On the other side, there's excitement, right? Because if you don't have any fear, well, yeah, exactly. But it's not the absence of fear, it's the absence of courage. And if you have courage, you can keep on moving forward in spite of the fear. And courage is a muscle. You can build it and build it and build it. And with time, it's just, you become better and better at it, where you say, you know what, yeah, it's okay. I can sort of move forward with this in spite of the fear. So on that topic, I would just, I would talk a lot about courage when it comes to fear. So here's another thinking tool that I want to share with the listeners. And I love this tool because if you really embrace it and if you really apply it, it's going to change how you think about your big dream, about your big ambition. The people that take this seriously, there's going to be two categories of people. People that look at this and yeah, whatever. And then people that take this and apply it. I'm telling you, this has really changed my thinking. I call that 25 years, 90 days, and 100 tries. So this thinking tool is 25 years, 90 days, on 100 tries. Let me ask you a question. Think about a big goal or a project that you're thinking about. Take a minute. Think about a really big goal or a really big project that you're thinking about. It could be a business idea. It could be traveling the world. It could be a side project. I don't care. Take a minute and think about that. So now that you've thought about that, it's got to be something that's important. And, maybe you don't have enough time, money, resources, energy. I don't know. But think about that big project. Think about that big goal. And now I want you to give yourself 25 years to accomplish that project or that big dream or that big goal, whatever it is. Give yourself 25 years. So when you give yourself 25 years, do you think you have enough time? Most people say, oh, yeah, I don't need 25 years. I can do this in 4 years or, 5 years or 7 years or, depending on the project. And I say, great, still give yourself 25 years. Now you have an extra, if it's going to take you 4 years, great. Now you have an extra 21 years to do something else. I think what happens when we think about our big goals, our big dreams, our big ambitions, the first thing that comes to mind is time scarcity. And I know I'm guilty of that. I think about this really big thing and I want it to happen tomorrow. So it doesn't work that way. And I'm like, I'm not necessarily thinking about it in detail, but I'm like, yeah, I'd like to get it in a year or 2 years. And I go, all right, what if I gave myself 25 years? I go, oh my goodness, not only can I do it, but I can do even more. And this thing would be so much better. And, take your project. I don't know what it is, but give yourself 25 years. And what I'm trying to do with this exercise is I'm trying to change your mindset so that you go from a time scarcity to time abundance. Because everything we're doing, we're trying to do it and we're trying to do it really fast. Well, guess what? If it's worthwhile, maybe it's worth 25 years. And you've heard the saying, Rome wasn't built in a day. And it's kind of that same concept of, hey, listen, if that really big dream or that really big ambition, give yourself 25 years. Now, let me take that. So the first part of this thinking tool is 25 years. Now, break it into the next 90 days. What are you going to do about that the next 90 days? If you think about that, every year has 4 quarters, and every quarter in a year is about 90 days. So all you have to focus on, what is your big dream? What is it going to look like in 25 years? Where do you want to be? And then what are you going to do about that the next 90 days? 25 years, 90 days. 25 years, 90 days. Your big goal, your big dream is in your head. It's 25 years away. What are you going to do about that the next 90 days? And at the end of the 90 days, stop, look at it, adjust, and keep moving forward. And what's really cool, Ruba, and I'm a math guy, if you do the math, the 25 years, each year has 4 quarters, right? So roughly 490 days. And if you take 25 times 4, that's 100. So you have 100 tries, and each try is 90 days to get to your big dream or your big goal or your big ambition, your big project, whatever that is. And so what I'm telling you is this thinking tool of 25 years, 90 days on 100 tries is fantastic. Here's my big dream. I want to get there in 25 years. If I get there sooner, that's a bonus. You know what? What am I going to do about that for the next 90 days? I focus on that. I go and I do that. Okay? And then after 90 days, I adjust and I have 100 tries to do that every 90 days. Now, that's a phenomenal thinking tool to help you get to your big dream and not lose sight of that. So it's one of my favorite things because I have a lot of things that I want to accomplish in my life, and I never give myself enough time. And I go, you know what? If I gave myself 25 years, I'm still young. I got a long ways to go. If I gave myself 25 years, wow, this would be amazing. So I don't need to do it next week or next month. I've got 25 years to do this thing. Why not? I'll come back to you, Ruba, but it's one of my favorite thinking tools that I like to share with the listener. The key is to take it seriously. And I remember the first time I took this exercise seriously, I was like, I was so relaxed in the sense of, oh my goodness, I don't need to do this next week or next month. I've got 25 years to do this. Why not? Why am if it's so important, why am I limiting myself to the next month or the next quarter or the next year? It's a really important goal for me. It's a really important dream. It's a big dream. I'll give myself 25 years. I don't care.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think this exercise is amazing because what you're doing is that you're bringing your dream to reality, right? Because you have this dream, let it be maybe a very far away dream from you. And now you're asking yourself about the time. You're giving yourself a realistic time frame, but it's still not so realistic, right? It's like 25, so it's a very long time. But then you narrow it down to actual actions, like, okay, what am I doing in the next 3 months? Which is also, 3 months is a long time. A lot can happen in 3 months, right? A lot can happen. So you're giving yourself a lot of space, really, in terms of time, but you want to be a little bit specific. I find that the goals of 3 months are really big, and sometimes they can be even vague, a little bit vague. But it really helps to think about, in 3 months' time, how much could I've done? Like, how much could I do? Because 3 months is actually a long time. Like for me, I think about I have the daily goals, I have like the weekly goals, but I don't really consider so much the 3 months goals. And then I have the yearly goals, right? Like every year you go and you put your goals. But I feel like 3 months is a long time as well. It will give you plenty of time to do so many things because you can actually do a lot in 3 months. Like you can see a progress.
Yeah. And to be fair, I take it and I break it down into weekly and daily and stuff like that, but like the key for me to focus on that one is like, what am I going to do the next 90 days? And what am I going to do in, 25 years?
But I think only that question changes your state of mind, because you're bringing it from a dream to reality. What am I doing? What action am I doing? What is doable in 3 months?
Yeah. And it's okay. Give yourself 25 years. Why not? So I got 2 calls to action for the listener. Okay. Number 1 is, and then Ruba, I'll turn it over to you if there's anything else you want to add, and then you can sign off. So my call to action for you as a listener, question number one is, where's your safe place, or how do you proactively recover, right? You really want to spend some time and you want to think about that and you want to write it down. I would say, how do you proactively recover on a daily basis, on a weekly basis, on a 90-day basis? Like every night, it's almost like your body needs a total reset every 90 days. But you want to figure out how to proactively recover every day. And it could be a simple walk. Like I love going outside, and it could be just a 10-minute walk sometimes is all I need. For me, I like to go on a longer run once a week. And then once every 90 days, I like to get away for 2-3 days, maybe more, but at least 2-3 days to just sort of get away and come back. And that for me is a proactive recovery, so that I'm totally focused, because, I'm really intense on the things I want to accomplish. And then the second thing is, remember the thinking tool that I just shared with you. Give yourself 25 years for your big dream. And if you finish it ahead of time, fantastic. And then just focus on 25 years and the next 90 days, 25 years and the next 90 days, right? That right there is going to put you on course to accomplish that big dream and to get there. And with that, Ruba, I'll turn it over to you if there's anything else you want to add, and then you can go ahead and sign off. Big dream.
Thanks,
and if you finish
David.
it ahead
It's
of time,
important
fantastic.
to realize that
And then just focus on 25 years and the next 90
it's
days.
really
25
not
years and the
linear.
next 90
It's
days,
kind
right?
of like
That right
a
there is going to
cycle.
put you on course
You
to
will go
accomplish
down.
that big dream
At
and to
some
get there. And with
point,
that,
you will get
Ruba, I'll turn it
distant
over to you if
from
there's
your
anything
belief.
else you want to add, and
You
then
will
you can
maybe
go ahead and sign off.
have opposing beliefs. You will get so far of it. You might feel that it's impossible to hold into that belief, or to hold into the dream, or to just even have this equality between a dream and a belief, because a dream and a belief, they are 2 different things. But you need to hold on to your dream as if it's a belief that you have, as if you believe that I'm here, right? I'm here. I'm looking at you right now, David, and that is something that I totally believe. Now, would everyone be able to hold to their dream with this clarity? It's a non-linear thing, but it's a process. This is what we're talking about, the process of falling down and then picking yourself up, and just continuing holding to it, doing these exercises. You continue to keep holding to this dream and continue doing it, and bringing it from your mind to reality, to action. You put yourself in the right mindset so that you can do it. Because if you don't do it, and if it will remain on your head, just there stuck, you're thinking about it, the more you think about it, the smaller that you feel about yourself, because it's just there and you can't do it. So you might as well do something about it.
Yeah. So Ruba, what I want to add to that is what we had talked about is sustaining belief for your big dream. And what we're sharing with you and the questions we asked, and these are questions to ask of yourself, is how you can avoid becoming like that piece of wood in the ocean that's just drifting with the waves going anywhere in life. And sadly, so many people, that's kind of what has become of them, right? And what we're sharing with you and what we've shared with you today is like, it's a tool for you. These are thinking tools. These are questions to ask yourself. So you're not that piece of wood that's just floating and drifting in the ocean, going wherever the waves take that, right? You've got your big dream. We want you to sustain belief and keep heading towards your big dream and not drifting in the ocean as a piece of wood. So that was kind of the last thought I wanted to share as you were talking.
Absolutely. And with that, we shall leave you now. So thank you, David. And thank you for listening to this program of Riyadi Club, where entrepreneurs are the real heroes. And don't forget, you have something in this world. So rise up.